on Route 73 in Marlton, New Jersey. This is the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. We're going to talk Phillies baseball. I'm Dan Baker, and my co-host tonight is one of only 13 pitchers to throw a no-hitter in Phillies history. It occurred May 23rd, 1991 versus the Expos in Montreal, Canada.
You're showing my age, Dan.
Well, I'll tell you what. Think of how few people throw no-hitters in Little League or Pony League or Babe Ruth League. You threw one in Major League Baseball. Ladies and gentlemen, number 49, Phillies pitcher Tommy Greene.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me here, man, and being a part of this show with you.
Well, Tom.
Hey, it makes me feel, like I say it every time, makes me feel like I can get on the mound today. It's like I'm 25, 6 years old again. You know, I mean, you make me feel that with hearing that voice, you know.
Well, Tom, you gave us Phillies fans a lot to cheer about.
Well, I had a lot of good times. Yeah, and while I was healthy enough to pitch, I really enjoyed my time in Philadelphia as far as doing that, playing the game of baseball and being around especially with our guest today.
Yeah.
I mean, he was probably one of the reasons involved in the reason why I'm with Phillies. Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, tonight Tommy Greene and I are privileged to co-host the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, and each and every week we try to get a high-profile former Philly player, manager, coach, broadcaster, front office executive, and we certainly have done that tonight. In fact, the Bleacher Report wrote a story saying why Ed Wade was the best GM in Phillies history. Now, maybe we're going to find out a little bit about that tonight.
Turn the screws on him a little bit.
I'm just going to throw a few things out there so that you can relate to our wonderful guest. He is a 1977 graduate of Temple University.
Hey.
I am also a Temple graduate school. He was a PR intern for the Phillies, a PR assistant beginning in 1979 with the Houston Astros, public relations director for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
How about that?
From 1981 through 1986. Then on to Tal Smith Enterprises in Houston, assistant general manager with the Phillies in 1995. He was the Phillies general manager by 1997. And by the way, he's got many attributes that we're going to get into.
Oh, yeah.
Including players that he's brought here, people that he's hired. The Phillies missed the playoffs by one game in 2005. And they decided to make a change after that year. I remember that one game they had against Houston here. Oh, my gosh. And Ed is so highly regarded, he became the Astros general manager from 2007 through 2011. And after the Astros sold, they made a change, at which time he returned to the Phillies as an executive assistant to our general manager and president from 2011 to 2017. Please welcome to the Bull Session former Phillies and Astros general manager Ed Wade.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for coming, Ed.
I'll tell you need to take a breath right there. There's a lot of things you just read right there about this man.
There's a lot of things that he's done.
That's exactly how I wrote it up for him.
Well, you know, Ed, one of the things that you're known for earlier in your administrative career is helping the Phillies acquire potential former Hall of Fame inductee Bobby Abreu.
Yeah,
How did
but-
that come about?
Well, obviously, Bobby played a huge part in what took place after he got here, but it was during the expansion draft, and we had a number of players on our list that we were considering to fill an outfield spot for us. Lee Thomas was the general manager at the time, and Lee had I told Lee or asked Lee a couple of years earlier if I could scout in spring training for a couple of years. So I had Houston as one of the clubs, and I kept coming back telling Lee they've got an outfielder there that I don't think fits for them, named Bobby Abreu. They had several guys like Bobby there, at least they thought like Bobby. Hidalgo, the other outfielder.
Yeah, I played with Richard.
So each team could protect X number of players going into the draft, where the Tampa Bay and Arizona could not take any players from them if those players were protected. Well, Bobby Abreu was not protected on the list from Houston, and so it was up to talking to both those clubs, and finally it was actually Colorado and Miami and Tampa Bay, and the way that it worked was Tampa Bay took Bobby Abreu, and we traded Kevin Stocker, who was our shortstop at the time, obviously our shortstop in the World Series in '93, and we made that trade to get Bobby, and I think Bobby ended up putting up Hall of Fame credentials. It'd certainly be great to see him there at some point in time. But regardless of that, he played a big part in our ball club, and I think he really legitimized a lot of the things that we did going forward. That fortunately led to great results down the road.
That guy could flat out hit. He could hit.
And Tommy and Ed, if I'm not mistaken, Bobby Abreu had close to or over a 400 on-base percentage for his career.
Well, you look at the power was there, doubles, triples, home runs, stolen bases. I mean, he had a couple of years of 30 or more stolen bases. His defense, I think his defense was underestimated in right field. An outstanding arm. Very few people ran on him.
He could walk too.
He could get great eye at the plate.
Yes.
I mean, Bobby was a complete player, and we were fortunate enough to have him for an extended period of time that sort of got us to the point where we were just about ready to get into Citizens Bank Park, and he was playing a key role for us at that point in time, and really legitimized a lot of things that Lee Thomas was doing, trying to build the ball club, and what we tried to do going forward.
I call that great scouting, don't you, Dan?
Well,
getting a guy like that, I think.
Very fortunate, very fortunate in that point in time that the Astros had a very deep system, and you can't protect everybody. I forget what the number of players were that you could protect, but a lot of guys were exposed to that draft, and to Tampa's credit, they knew that they needed a frontline shortstop, and the price for getting a shortstop, a full-time solid shortstop, was to trade a player that never really was theirs in the first place, and Bobby Abreu.
Yeah,
that's
unbelievable. To get a guy of that caliber, I mean, you got to give up something to get something. It seems like a little bit. You saw the talent to get him.
Yeah, we knew what he could do to the middle of a lineup, and trading stock was not an easy decision for anybody to make. Desi Relevant and some other guys stepped in and sort of filled the role, but not to the extent that Stock had done at that point in time. And then unfortunately that following season, Kevin hurt his ankle, I believe, when he was with Tampa, and his career was never the same. But time and circumstance dictated that if we could get a guy of Bobby Abreu's caliber, I forget some of the. Quentin McCracken was one of the other guys that was under consideration, and I sort of took advantage of my position as Lee's assistant. I was around Lee more than the other guys were to continue to say, don't walk past Abreu. Quentin McCracken's a good player, but Lee, I know you haven't seen this guy, but he's really something special, and fortunately it turned out that way for everybody involved.
Well, Quentin McCracken was down from my neck of the woods, if I'm not mistaken.
Solid.
North Carolina boy down there. He played a rival high school back in the day. So
very solid player, and I think I forget what front office he's working in now, but he's really established himself as a front office executive as well.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Ed Wade is also responsible for hiring Charlie Manuel as Phillies manager. And Ed, we had talked before the show that I wanted to ask you your top trades as Phillies GM, Astros GM, free agent signings with each team, and hires. Charlie Manuel's got to rank right up there, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was a big decision for us to make when I let Terry Francona go and then hired Larry Bo, who's to me the smartest man in baseball I've ever been around.
Unbelievable.
But we made the change with Bo, and now we had the position open again, and there were a lot of people that were weighing in as to who the right guy would be. Jim Leland was available, Buddy Bell was available, Don Baylor. So we talked about a lot of people, but Charlie, I had a chance because we signed Jim Thome as a free agent the year before and hired Charlie at that point in time. So they had that relationship. So I had a chance, with Charlie being a special assistant to me, to be around him and saw how he interacted with all our players. And I'm a huge Jim Leland fan, great baseball man.
So
there were a
am
lot
I.
of those guys on the list that we had. But I saw how Charlie interacted with players, and I had people like Ruben Amaro, who's my assistant, who played for Charlie in Cleveland. We had Tommy, who spoke on Charlie's behalf. And it just seemed to me the time and circumstance dictated from a personality standpoint we needed somebody like Charlie. It was, as people like yourself remember, it was not the most popular decision to make because of the caliber of some of the other people that were out there, and people had some pretty disparaging things to say about myself and about Charlie until they saw Charlie in action and saw the end result of what the ball club became in 2005, 6, 7, and obviously in 2008 when you won the World Series.
I think Charlie did a pretty darn good job as manager of the Cleveland Indians also before coming here. So he had a track record there. And when you talk about Tommy career accomplishments by Ed Wade, I mean, those are some of them.
I'll tell you what, I mean, to be able to, you come down to make that type of decision for an organization, I mean, somebody to head the ship on the field in the manager is a big thing. You want the right person to do that. And like Ed just said, there were some high-powered guys available at that time when right there when he hired Charlie. And it comes down to a decision. He's got to feel in his gut. I mean, to make that, you got to pull the trigger and do that. Is that guy the right guy? And obviously he got to know him. He'd been around him. And if you ever want to learn how to hit a baseball, that's the man you want in your corner.
Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, it's and I think, the Philadelphia fans, they owe you a good pat on the back for that one, because you brought him and he's brought this city and taught some guys how to do some things that made them happy and put them there, and we won a World Series with those guys.
I'm happy that it worked out for everybody involved. Wish it happened a little bit sooner, obviously, but the things that Charlie did, again, Larry's one of my favorite people in the world. To me,
encyclopedia of knowledge.
The smartest baseball person, on-field baseball person I've ever been around. Firing Terry Francona was a tough thing to do, which led up to hiring Bo as the manager. But as people know, we were really struggling as a club at that point in time, and Terry sort of became the bullseye for the negativity that existed at that point in time. So I'm a big believer in time and circumstance, and Terry was the right guy at the right time. Bo was the right guy at the right time. Charlie was the right guy at the right time, and you sort of have to look at the totality of what your situation is and who you think would best fit the role. And Charlie certainly lived up to every expectation that I had, and exceeded a lot of expectations that other people had.
And look what Terry Francona went on to do with the Boston Red Sox and the Cleveland Indians / Guardians.
His career.
It was a
great career he's had.
Great man, and obviously a great man. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. There's no question about that, and a great person. Again, it was just a circumstance where we were a rebuilding club at that point in time, and Philadelphia is not a town in which you rebuild. So he became the lightning rod for that negativity.
Yes.
But there was no question about what Terry brought, and I'd highly recommend, if it's not on a night that your show is on, that people tune into the special that was just done on him on the Major League Baseball Network. It's incredible, the background information and see what Terry's gone through both on and off the field since his time in Philadelphia. It's really a great tribute to him.
We have a lot more to talk about with former Phillies and Astros general manager Ed Wade and Phillies no-hit pitcher Tommy Greene. I'm Dan Baker. We're going to pause now for our first commercial break.
Can't call you a no-hit pitcher.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
SEPTA offers a variety of career opportunities. Our core business is transit, and with 5 modes of service, we rely on and need operators, engineers, and conductors. But it takes a host of other specialties, including mechanics, electricians, plumbers, masons, painters, carpenters, welders, and more to keep the system moving. As an employee, you will earn competitive compensation and great benefits, including medical, dental, prescription, and a pension. Visit jobs.septa.org to apply today. That's jobs.septa.org.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Tommy Greene.
Thank you very much. Special guest tonight, former Phillies general manager and Houston Astros general manager Ed Wade. Now, every week on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, we pick a Live Fearless Phillies Player of the Week. And our celebrity co-host is the one who makes that choice.
Yep.
So, Tommy, whom have you chosen?
I'm going to have at it. And I'm going to go through, like I told you before the show started, I'm going to go from the week starting this past, this goes from Sunday and ends Saturday, this past Saturday. And the guy I'm going with he had a great week swinging the bat, man. Alec Bohm. And I tell you what, what he did, and he stood out with the team. We went 5-1. We're 5-1 for the week, that 7-day period. He appeared in 5 ball games, 21 at bats, 4 runs scored, 11 hits, 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 8 RBIs. And hit .524 for the week. Pretty good week at the yard. The closest one to, really wasn't nobody really close to him. There's some guys hit, in the mid 3s, but to hit hit over 500 for the week's getting it done. He swung the bat great, knocked in some runs, scored some runs, and that's what we needed. One of the reasons why we went 5-1 for the week.
Tommy, we've just about reached the halfway point of the 2023 Major League Baseball season.
Yep.
How would you rate the Phillies' performance as we hit the halfway mark?
Inconsistent, I think is a word that comes in. We talked about it all last year when we did some shows. When I did some shows with you last year, we talk about where this team's at and whatever. I said the ability is there. It's about them getting healthy. Like they need to get healthy. We still got some guys. Obviously they are missing hugely the power production from Hoskins. They're missing those power numbers. They're hoping Hall, I think now that they called him back up, can fill that void and hit us some possibly home runs. But it shows you, they're missing in that aspect a little bit because we got accustomed to those things. Now, Harper's back. And to me, swinging the bat good. He's using all fields. He's hitting 280, 290, almost 300, somewhere in that range. But the power's not there yet. And that's just going to take time. If he's hitting the balls to all fields like he is, it's not going to take but a little bit of time. I mean, he's going to square those balls up and they're going to go. It just takes a little bit of time to get back, that strength, that total strength that he needs to do things. It's there. He's going to hit some home runs by the end of it. But the inconsistency thing, it comes down. We're still making the little mistakes, the errors, the things that's costing us ball games. Just like you were talking about the one that a couple outfield errors that's cost us yesterday. In the game yesterday with Suarez. It kind of puts you in a situation where he has to make one pitch and it costs us big time, giving up a grand slam that costs us a ball game. So I mean, it's that type of thing.
Tommy, we're approaching the trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
That's not too far away.
Oh, we got the perfect guy here for that.
Absolutely, and it's not a coincidence that we have this terrific general manager. So, Ed Wade, I'd like to ask you a couple of things, if you could, please. I'd like to ask you what you might do if you were the Phillies general manager now, and could you also reflect on what you feel were your most successful trades when you were the Phillies general manager and when you were the Astros general manager?
Well, I know it's not that long before the trading deadline, but there's a lot of things that could go right without doing anything with this ball club, in my opinion. The player that you just talked about as Baum, the fact that the second baseman's come out of the system and has really hit the ground running for them. Once they're able to put Harper defensively at first base, which seems to be coming very quickly at this point in time. That's going to allow them to do something in left field and get Schwarber into that DH slot. I guess when all that shakes out, then perhaps another outfielder, although I don't think it's a priority. Pitching is always a priority.
Never can have enough of that, right?
No, and they've gotten really good starts, and guys have stepped up and done some things, but you're always in the market for that one piece like that. Texas just did it a couple of days ago when they went and got Aroldis Chapman from the Royals, and this is a club that's running away, not running away, but really a strong club in the American League at this point in time. But they went out and got an arm. You can never have enough of them because you never know. You're one pitch away from really needing somebody, and if you don't want to rush guys through your system and get them there prematurely, particularly if you're trying to get into a pennant race or sustain a pennant race, it's difficult. So there's a lot of moving parts to it, and I think it's really going to come down to, I don't think you're going to see any deals fall into their laps early. It's going to get down closer to the deadline, and then I think from a priority standpoint, you're always looking for arms.
Yeah.
Your best trade as a Phillies GM. Your best trade as an Astros GM.
The first major trade that I made after I became general manager was acquiring Doug Glanville from the Cubs for Mickey Morandini, and I tell people Mickey Morandini was Dave Montgomery's favorite player. So my first trade as the general manager, I traded the president's favorite player.
And there's nobody that says his name any better than that man right there.
But I think Doug really at that point in time, Doug began to legitimize what we're doing in the outfield. Obviously, he was supplanting Dykstra at that point in time, and Linney was still under contract, but it was something that I felt needed to be done for us to begin to turn the corner that we needed to turn. Later on, I haven't given a lot of thought, but obviously being able to go out and get a closer like Billy Wagner to come in and do what he was capable of doing. It would have been great if we'd been able to extend him instead of him going to New York. I think that was an important thing. Smaller deals, like again in that same time period around 2005. Kenny Lofton, we were able to acquire Kenny Lofton to play center field and platoon with Jason Michaels out there. And I think if you look at their numbers, it was an incredible combo that they having both those guys out there. But, obviously pitching is also a big thing. Being able, we had chased a lot of pitching. I forget what year it was. We were chasing a lot of pitching during the off season. Paul Bird and some other guys who looked like they would fit for us, but we kept holding off because we thought we might get Tom Glavine, and we didn't get Glavine. Now we're the day of the tender deadline. We have tender contracts. I get a call on my way to the ballpark. It's John Sherhorst, and he said, "We're going to non-tender Kevin Millwood. Would you consider trading Johnny Estrada for Kevin Millwood?" And I said, I'm on my way at the office. Let me call you back. Came into the office. I talked to Dave Montgomery and Mike Arbuckle and Ruben Amaro, and I called called John back and we made the deal like that. It was the fastest trade that I ever made. It was a 2-phone call trade, but it brought a guy like Kevin Millwood, who moving into the rotation with guys like Tommy,
another no-hit pitcher.
The types of guys that we had at that point in time. Again, it was continuing to move us forward. We knew we had built a strong farm system, and a lot of those guys were close to being the guys at the big league level. But to be able to add a top of the rotation starter like Millwood, I think not only from a competitive standpoint, but again legitimizing what we were trying to do. Because remember, at that point in time, we kept telling our fans when we get to Citizens Bank Park, things will be different economically, and we'll be able to do different things. And I think that type of move, and obviously the free agent signing of Jim Tomey and going out and getting David Bell, we were backing up the things that we had promised our fans going forward, and some of those things worked exceptionally well, some not as much as you would have hoped to, but I think it legitimized the approach that we were taking of building our farm system and then augmenting it with guys that were really impact players. And there's no bigger impact free agent in the history of the Phillies, as far as I'm concerned. People would argue that obviously Bryce Harper certainly fits the bill, but where we were from a time and circumstance standpoint, Jim Tomey epitomized what we were trying to do.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about trades and bringing people from outside the organization in here. How important, especially during your era and stuff like that, you were talking about your in-house guys, your minor league people, guys that come through the organization, your Utleys, your Rollins, and those guys that come up during your tenure. I'm pretty sure Jimmy was and Chase, right? Mm-hmm. Come up. Where do you see, compared to then, to where the possibly Phillies are now? I don't know if you keep up with it any. I'm just kind of looking outside the box a little bit. What you think about what's happening now in their organization? I'm hearing
good things about the system. I'd be disingenuous to say that I'm up on the system, but I'm hearing
got some arms.
Hearing lots of good things about the system. I've got to pay respects to the work that Mike Arbuckle did in the organization. We talked about Lee Thomas and the players that he brought in on his watch as general manager. Well, Lee's the one that hired Mike Arbuckle, and I think Mike Arbuckle was the most significant hire in the history of the franchise because he came in and really solidified our scouting department. And you start rattling off the names of the guys that are wearing 2008 World Series rings, and most of those guys have Mike's handprints on them, Mike and his scouting staff. To me, everything that happened going forward revolved around the work that those scouts did under Mike's direction, and then I also made Mike our farm director, so he ran both jobs.
He come from the Braves organization at one time, right?
That was his. A lot of those guys.
I remember Mike.
A lot of those guys came from
back then.
From there, young. But you've got all those guys coming at the same time and legitimizing what we're calling the Phillies way at that point in time. And I think everything really flowed from that. You can go out and acquire, you can make trades, you can sign free agents and everything, but if you haven't established a really solid farm system, it's going to be short-lived. And the reality is that there was a lot of legs left in that franchise going forward well beyond 2008 because of the work that Mike and his guys did, beating the bushes at the high school and college levels before they ever got to the big leagues.
Exactly.
And as Tommy talked about, Ed, you brought up some terrific players from the Phillies farm system to help provide the foundation for the 2008 and 2009 back-to-back World Series performances. Yeah. This is the end of the first half of tonight's Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, but don't go away. We've got a lot more to talk about with Ed Wade, Tommy Greene, and me, Dan Baker, in just a moment.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
I'm always striving to live my healthiest life, so I need a health plan that has my back. With Independence Blue Cross, I get access to the largest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free virtual doctor visits 24/7. Plus, with premiums as low as $0 per month, I can stay on top of my health and keep my budget in check. Independence has given me coverage I can count on, and they'll do the same for you. Explore your coverage options and enroll today at ibx.com.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Tommy Greene.
Welcome back to Chickies and Pete's on Route 73 in Marlton, New Jersey. You are listening to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session on WBCB 1490 AM, 107.3 FM. Co-host Tommy Greene, former outstanding Phillies pitcher, and Ed Wade, former outstanding general manager for both the Philadelphia Phillies and the Houston Astros. Ed, no less an authority than Hall of Fame general manager Pat Gillick, has referred to the 2008 Phillies World Series champions as Ed Wade's team, which I thought was such a magnanimous statement to make, showing what a gentleman he is, and at the same time recognizing the truth and the enormous contribution, Ed, that you made to that team with your player acquisitions, with free agent signings, with guys you brought up from the bullpen. Could you discuss with us, maybe in the order of importance, in constructing that foundation, how it came about?
Well, first of all, to address what Pat said, I was, it was his club. I mean, he got it over the finish line and did a tremendous job. You're talking about a Hall of Fame general manager, but that said, I have to admit I wasn't even awake when the Phillies won the World Series in 08. I was in Houston as their general manager, and my phone started to buzz with text messages, and it was about what Pat Gillick had said. I had no idea what people were talking about, but he really helped legitimize the work that we put in before the end of the 2005 season, and for that I'm eternally grateful. We both had the same mentor. Tal Smith was my mentor in Houston, and Pat and Tal actually almost grew up together in the game in the Houston organization. So we had that link during that period of time. It's for that club to get to where it was at. Again, I've got to go back to the core nucleus that was developed with our scouting and player development people. And the fact that we had made that promise to the fans when we were at the Vet that things would be different at Citizens Bank Park, and Dave Montgomery and I, our pledge internally and externally was get good and stay good. That was the goal. It wasn't to go out and do a bunch of things and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. If it doesn't work, well then we'll go to Plan B the next year. We wanted to have that long-term success in place, and it took a couple years to get there. But if you look at 2003, 4, and 5, and then on after I was there, it was that group, that core nucleus group that then we could build around, that Pat and Ruben could build around to try to get it to that next level, and ultimately to the point where you've got a parade going down, going through the city. But everything was geared towards trying to get good and stay good. And we had some people that didn't subscribe to what we were doing. In all candor, I don't think Scott Rowland was ready for us to be 3 or 4 years away. I think Scott wanted it to move faster than that. Obviously, Kurt Schilling wanted it to move faster than that. And so we had to make some changes along the way where you'd have loved to have those types of guys on your club and have the success they had other places happen here. But again, time and circumstance dictated that we had to do certain things in order to continue to advance it at the pace that we thought was going to work for us. And the pace that we thought was going to work for us obviously manifested itself and came to its conclusion in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, talking about those, you got your Shillings and your Rollins and stuff like that. You want something that's going to be good for your ball club, too, inside the clubhouse and stuff like that, because if you got guys that are not happy, you know how that rolls. And I know as a player too, man, you got a chance to do some things and bring some people on board from these guys when you do things, and that's what you try to do. Give the city, show the city you're trying to do things that are going to help this ball club in the long run, and that's exactly what you did, man.
Well, one of the things that you deal with is do the quote unquote. I'm not talking about players, but basically talking about your fans. Do something.
Yeah.
Do something. And sometimes not doing anything is the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing.
Because sometimes do something that's really going to be an aha moment. All of a sudden, oh, you mean they traded for Barry Zito, who they give up? Oh, they gave up Chase Utley and Ryan Madsen and Michael Bourne. That may have sounded like a pretty good deal at the time because some of those guys weren't really well known by our fans.
Yeah.
But now fast forward to the reality of what would happen when I said no to making the Barry Zito trade.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what those three players, including Michael Bourne with us in Houston, what they were able to accomplish going forward. It's a deal that gets you a lot of kudos at the beginning, gets you run out of town 2 years down the road.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's trying to, along with being aggressive and trying to show that you're doing things. If you fall into the do something realm, your chances are you're going to do something that's not going to pay off very well.
Yeah.
Ed, does it make it a lot more difficult for you to get the kind of value in return that you want when someone like Scott Rowland or Kurt Schilling is vocal about wanting to be moved to another team?
Yeah, in all candor, yes. Scotty wasn't very vocal about his situation, but he made it clear to me. I can remember Scott coming into my office and saying there was a legal pad on the conference table in my office, and he said there's no amount of money that you can write on that's going to get me to stay here. I'm not from here, and he just made it clear that it wasn't going to work. We could have decided to hang on to him until he got to the point of free agency, and I'd say there was probably a 99.9% chance that he would not stay with us at that point. Schilling was more vocal about the situation, and understandably so. If you're a starting pitcher, you know you've got a shelf life, and he goes on to pitch in Arizona, and they build a club there. Again, we talk about get good and stay good. They built a club in Arizona that was basically built for winning a World Series, and it was built on veteran players, a lot of deferred compensation in their contracts, things that we couldn't do or wouldn't do. And then he goes on to Boston, and obviously great success there. But it wasn't going to happen with us at the pace that they felt that it needed to happen. And we were candid about it, and when you're candid about it, yes, you weaken the market about what you're going to get in return. And neither deal brought us the types of players that you would say you're going to build on for a long term. Love Placido Polanco coming over in the Rowland trade. End up trading because I had to get a closer in 2005. But the reality is that you are operating probably on 75 cents on the dollar when people know that the guys there are waiting for their opportunity to walk away, and you get nothing in return other than a draft pick.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to Houston for just a moment, because you had 4 very productive years there, and once again laid the foundation for another championship run.
Well, when I first got to Houston, it was sort of full steam ahead. Drayton McLean, the owner of the club, and Tal Smith, who as I said, was my mentor, who was back with the Astros as their president of baseball operations. When they brought me on board and hired me, the idea was to continue to be aggressive in the club. Craig Biggio had just retired, but they had a long string of postseason experience before that. So it looked like we were going to continue to try to move in that direction. And then about 2 years into it, when the economy was impacted negatively, Drayton decided to sell the club. And at that point in time, it basically became a sell-off. So what we were doing then, trading people like Lance Berkman and some of the real established players that we had in the organization at that time, trying to build a little bit of a nucleus, or trying to build a bigger nucleus to try to go forward. And then the sale of the club took place in 2011. And when new ownership came in, they basically tore the whole thing down and did the tanking thing, which I'm completely opposed to. But that said, at the time that the sale took place, we had 42 players in the Astros organization, either in the major league or the minor league. 42 players who ended up playing in the big leagues. Some of them still playing today. Obviously, Jose Altuve, still there. J.D. Martinez, most valuable player. George Springer, who just set a record for most leadoff home runs but in a career. There were a lot of guys. Mark Melancon, the closer, who's still pitching today, came over in a Yankee trade for Lance Berkman. So I'm proud of the fact that we had those guys. Not a lot of them ended up on the World Series club because of the changes they made. Dallas Keuchel, Cy Young Award winner, was part of it. But I was proud of what we were doing there. I was disappointed when we had to change direction with regard to the economic situation and Drayton's decision that he had to sell the club. And then obviously when the sale did take place, I was dismissed. But in all candor, if I was asked to do a tank situation where you're tanking season after season, I'd probably have walked away at that point in time, because I don't think that's fair to your fans, no matter what your circumstances. You can make all the promises you want for what you're going to be down the road, but if I'm a fan and somebody says, we're going to be good in 3 years, I would say, okay, I'll be back in 3 years. Let me know. But it turned out to be very successful for them, and the fans in Houston were very, very patient. But I was proud of the things that we were doing, and at the end result, even though it happened after I left there, I was happy that we left a pretty full cabinet for them to choose from, whether to keep players or not.
Good athletes and good players down there, man.
Tommy, what was your first experience with Ed Wade?
Oh my God! I mean, it was the trade that they did.
Was it the time I got you out of the bar? No, that wasn't you.
That wasn't me. It was probably some of my comrades, but no, I mean, experience with that with him and Lee Thomas pulling the trade off, and with Dale Murphy to trade when I got traded over here with Dale Murphy, or I was the guy with Dale Murphy, or as Dale
Jeff
says,
Parrott went down there.
Yeah, and I was Dale Murphy would say, "Who's the guy in the Tommy Greene trade?" Is what he would always say. Well, after I threw the no-hitter,
you were the key guy. We just had to wait a little bit longer.
I appreciate that, Ed. Thanks for saying that. Made me feel good. But that was my first experience. Obviously, coming over to the Phillies, people, the first thing they asked me is, "How'd you like playing? How do you like playing?" I said, "I love Philadelphia. I love the coaches that I had, the guys I was around, especially the ones I ended up having that were the mainstay. I mean, like Fergosi and Pods. I come in, Nick Leyva was the guy here, but Fergosi, Pods, and you had John Vukovic, and you had Larry Boa, and you had Irish Mike Ryan, and they taught me how to play the game, and they held me to a standard, especially John Vukovic. They taught me about the city, what the city expects from their athletes, from their ball players. The way you go about your business is a huge thing in what you do. No excuses. They don't want to hear any excuses. They taught me and held me accountable for that. John Vukovic helped me grow up to be a young man, and helped me, challenge me to be that. And that's what coaching is. That's what coaching. Sometimes you don't like it. You don't have to like it. They're your coach. They're trying to make you better. And like John Vukovic, she said, the reason I did that to you yesterday is because I love you. You're a great person, and you could be a great ball player if you allow yourself to it. So he challenged me that way, and that's the guys that Ed and I call him Mad Dog, Lee Thomas. They got to coach us, and be that. So they really had, they put, the pieces, some pieces were there, but they have those guys that to be privy to their knowledge and stuff like that. I couldn't ask for any better surroundings and to play for the Philadelphia Phillies and for their fans, because being held accountable, I'm all about that.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground tonight on the first 3 quarters of the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, but we've got one segment left that you won't want to miss. With Ed Wade, Tommy Greene, and me, Dan Baker, we'll be right back.
Hi, it's
This
Pete
is the part
Chicky
where we
and
sing.
Pete's. It's all
Is this the
new and
part
it's
where we
all for
sing?
you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
Millions of Americans are losing their medical assistance or Medicaid coverage. If this affects you, Independence Blue Cross can help. You may be eligible to enroll in a health plan for as little as $0 a month. With Independence Blue Cross, you get the largest provider network in the area, including most Keystone First doctors and hospitals. We also offer free 24/7 telemedicine, coverage for hospital stays and prescriptions. See if you qualify for $0 health insurance and enroll today. Call Independence Blue Cross at 1-844-464-2583 or visit ibx.com/staycovered.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Phillies PA announcer Dan Baker and Tommy Greene.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Chickies and Pete's on Route 73 in Marlton, New Jersey, and taking place right here tonight, live radio broadcast, the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session on WBCB Radio, 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. Now, next week, the Bull Session will take place at another great Chickies and Pete's up in Warrington, Pennsylvania.
That's my neck of the woods.
Tommy Greene will be there. Bill Werndell will be pinch hitting for me next week. And our special guest will be Joe Kerrigan, former big league pitcher, former Major League pitching coach, and former interim manager with the Boston Red Sox.
Yep.
And former Temple baseball player, along with Ed Wade.
How about that?
In fact, Joe's group actually went under Skippy Wilson to the College World Series, I believe.
Yeah, a couple of years before I got there. Yeah, they did. Yeah. Yeah, good baseball. Obviously, Joe's a real good baseball man, but it's nice to hear Skip Wilson's name mentioned too, because in this city, there are a lot of people that know what kind of job Skip did over the years at Temple.
Well, Ed, tell us about your baseball career at Temple.
Well, this won't take long.
We were just talking about the war wounds he's got.
No, I'm from Carbondale, Pennsylvania. I played baseball there in the Fall League, St. Rose High School, and then wrote a letter to, I didn't even know who the baseball coach was at Temple, and it was Skip Wilson. And he answered my letter, invited me down, and I came down and saw one of their games when I was a senior. And I was a walk-on on the team. I played for 2.5 years. I was on the team for 2.5 years, I should say. And then I was a journalism major and wanted to graduate on time. So after the fall of my junior year, I stopped playing and got involved in their internship program and a bunch of internships that led to the job with the Phillies. The internship with the Phillies led to a full-time job. But Skip and I stayed close for all the way up to his death. I would talk to him frequently on the phone, and no matter how he was feeling, if the subject was baseball, it was a good conversation. But somebody that really brought a lot to the collegiate scene in Philadelphia, and unfortunately the program was dropped, but there were a lot of good moments there that Skip provided and that the program provided, and we're all fortunate to have a chance to say we put the uniform on for Skip.
Skip also recruited John Baum to Temple basketball.
Yep.
I don't know if you know that. And John, like yourself and many of us, very saddened when Skip passed not too long ago. Ed, I want to give you a chance to talk about your wife, Roxanne, who is here tonight. And those of us, Tommy Greene, myself, all of us in this industry, with the hours that it requires to be successful, you really need somebody who's patient and loving and encouraging and all of those things. How did you and Roxanne meet?
Here's your chance to shine.
And let's hear about some of your beautiful wife's attributes.
Well, first of all, about 6 months ago, I was asked to give a speech, a Catholic speech at St. Paul's School. There were about 400 people there. And my speech was coincidences are not coincidences, that things happen for a real reason. And we've talked about my baseball career and how I started as an intern with the Phillies in '77. Well, at the vet, our offices were on the 4th floor, as was the press box. So I was at the 4th floor elevator one night waiting for the elevator, and one of the hot pants girls walked up, and we said hello to each other, and we've been married now for over 42 years. So Roxanne's an elementary school special education teacher, has been doing it forever, except during the time when Ryan, Aaron, and Maureen were born, but very dedicated to that. And
well, listen, you have a wonderful relationship. You've set a great example for the Phillies family. And
you said that's 2 words right there, Phillies family.
Yeah,
that's something. That brings Dave Montgomery back in my mind.
Well, taking a notch up from there, Bill Giles. I mean,
amen.
As time goes by, you think about what Bill was in Houston, came up, and the Carpenter family hired him when they were first moving into the vet. Dave Montgomery tells the story that he went over. David went to the 76ers, applied for a job, and they said, well, we don't have a job, but you ought to go across the street. The guy that the Phillies just hired over there is a guy named Bill Giles, and he might be interested. And that's how David ended up with the Phillies. But
those two, man.
The Phillies family stuff is true. Getting back to Roxanne, as all of us can attest, being involved in baseball, the hours that are involved, particularly from a front office standpoint, where there really is no off season. We raised 3 children. Ryan went to the Naval Academy and has had a great career doing a lot of different things. Our daughter Erin from Villanova worked for Jay Wright there and is now and worked for the Department of the Pentagon now at Comcast. Our daughter Maureen, West Virginia graduate who now works for a firm called Home Base, which is a charitable organization for PTSD, brain injuries. So we're proud of what the kids did, but it would be disingenuous for me to say that it was more me not either being there or staying out of the way, so things were done the right way.
and that's a good way. That's a good way of putting that. Staying out of the way sometimes, and let I call him the chief. I know on my behalf, first let the chief handle that side of it. Which they were better off of me not being involved. I know they got raised right. I know my son did.
Well, Ed, I'm glad you had a chance to recognize Roxanne, because too many times those of us who are lucky enough to attain some level of visibility could understand full well that we could not do it without their love, encouragement, and support, and the time that they spend with the families, because you know, we're being away and raising the wonderful children that you've done, and Tommy and myself.
The behind-the-scenes stuff is unbelievable. You know, they need to be acknowledged. They're the rock. They are the rock. You know, to the family. You know, and it keeps everything going. They make that engine run, and that's what the family is. The family is that, and the beautiful mothers, wives, are the centerpiece to that. They are the engine to that. You know, to that.
Well, we used to talk about, you know, from a player standpoint. You know, I used to say that, you know, people say that, well, they made a player move, they made a transaction, and it really depersonalizes the impact that it has on an entire family. You're going to send we're going to send Tommy Greene back to AAA. Okay, well, it's not just Tommy going back to AAA. It's his family uprooting. It's finding a place to live there. We made a trade. We made a roster move. Okay, now that guy's going to move to a different city. He's got a lease. There are so many things that are involved in it. And from a front office standpoint, you know, 6 weeks of spring training sounds very, very appealing until you think about, you know, who's watching the children. You know, in Roxanne's case, working a lot of that time. I spent 4 years as the general manager of the Astros, and Roxanne would come down in the summer because she was teaching here in South Jersey, and it was the right thing for us to do at that point in time. So, you know, we can talk about the sacrifice we made as front office people or broadcasters or players, but it is not. You're not the Lone Ranger in this whole deal.
Oh, the sacrifices, you know, or they make the sacrifices. You know?
I'd like to ask. We have 2 minutes left, Ed, and we want to take full advantage of your expertise.
Good, because I'm about done.
If you had to make one move to help the Phillies for the second half of the 2023 baseball season.
Is this a wish list or just a wish list?
This man knows baseball.
No, he does.
And he knows what the Phillies may need. And he's so polite, he would never overstep his bounds. But I'm just asking generically, you know, as a baseball guy, how could the Phillies be helped?
Well, again, if you end up with Bryce Harper being able to go and play first base, you know, obviously losing Hoskins when they lost him in spring training, all that stuff, and then be able to move Schwarber into the DH spot to sort of solidify left field if that's a possibility. But again, as we started the show with, it's about trying to get your pitching in order.
I'm going to tell you who my former co-host Greg the Bull Luzinski recommends. Adam Duvall. That's his choice if a move is made. Hey, everybody, that concludes tonight's show.
Not a bad
It's been a good one. You've heard a lot tonight
yes, you have.
about Ed Wade, Tommy Greene, the Phillies, and we'd like to thank our producer, Chris Ermer, back at the WBCB studio, Stephen Lawler. Don't forget, Tommy Greene, Bill Werndell next week from Chickies and Pete's in Warrington. Special guest, Joe Kerrigan. Good night, everybody.
You've been listening to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Tonight's show is an exclusive presentation of 1490 WBCB.